Good morning. Welcome to the Skinny for Friday, August 15th, here in the year 2025. My name is Ray Roa. I'm the editor-in-chief at Creative Loafing Tampa Bay. On the air solo today as my co-host Mitch Perry is enjoying some well-deserved time off. So, Mitch, we hope you're having a really good time. We want to remind listeners that next Friday we'll see this program and the one before us, Down and Dirty. We're going to combine and do a 2-hour election forum with candidates who meet qualifying this evening in the special election for the District 5 seat on Tampa City Council. That forum here on WMNF will kick off at 10:06 a.m. on Friday, August 22nd. We're going to take a full 2 hours, and we hope you can join us. In the last part of the program today, we'll be joined by Kel Cameron, a college educator in Tampa, who recently entered the race to unseat Florida House Rep Karen Gonzalez-Pittman. But first, one thing that every candidate talking to voters in the Tampa Bay always mentions is transit. And we're going to spend the next 40, maybe 45 minutes or so talking about transportation. Our guest to help us do that today, Emily Hinsdale, a writer and author and president of Sidewalk Stompers, also a board member of Walk Bike Tampa, which is helping organize World Car Free Day in September. Also in studio today is Johnny Wong, who was named executive director of the Hillsborough County Transportation Planning Organization in 2023. And via Zoom, Dana Lazarus, founder of Transit Now Tampa Bay here. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thanks, Ray. Happy to be here.
Emily, I want to start with you. You've had a really busy morning, and I'm grateful that you've shoehorned us into this because you were at Cafe Con Tampa today in downtown Tampa at the Portico, where you talked about World Car Free Day. Tell me how much of this I'm getting wrong about it. Saturday, September 20th. Right. This is a global celebration, involves about 50 countries, about 2,000 cities. And basically, this is Tampa's third time partaking, correct?
That's right. This is something that Walk Bike Tampa started 3 years ago. So we are very excited for our third annual World Car Free Day Tampa.
And basically, World Car Free Day is exactly what you kind of like. It is what it says it is. It's an invitation to kind of walk, bike, or scoot around and use transit to experience and envision this city in a totally different way. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's a fun and active way to be out and see how the city is connected, see how we can all tie into each other and just look at different options for getting around town.
And so I wanted to ask you, when you say get around without a car, data from Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles shows that 87 pedestrians died in Hillsborough and Pinellas last year, which is actually down from, I think, 111 the year before. And then 21, there was 126 fatalities. I think at the time, Florida was second in the U.S. for pedestrian deaths. And I say that to set this up because it's kind of hard to convince people that they can get around town without a car. But the World Car Free Day slate is kind of ambitious. There's these activities and they give folks a chance to bike from Midtown to Encore and Ybor. In those 3 years, how much do you think you've changed perspectives on this idea that it's hard to get around without a car?
We have seen participation grow each year. One of the ways that we were specifically able to track this last year, if you've ridden over the Cass Street Bridge, there is a bike pedestrian counter that will record how many people are going that direction on bike or on foot. Last year for our World Car Free Day event, that number was doubled from what it usually is on a similar day. So we are seeing greater participation. And I think what's really great about an event like this is the education aspect that, there are some very, very dangerous places to be on the road as a biker or pedestrian, but there's also a lot of routes that are very successful for a biker or pedestrian. So this is a really good way to demonstrate how you can get around, what are routes that you can take where you can feel more confident walking or biking.
Sometimes when we're in these things, our causes and stuff like that, sometimes it can feel really tribal, but World Car Free Day is a really good chance to see who else is out there. How much has kind of who comes to this and who are you seeing out there and how much has that changed over time, especially in the context of Tampa's growth?
Yeah, that's definitely a feeling I have sometimes when I go to meetings and I look around the room to talk about transportation. I'm like, wow.
There's 5 of us.
I know everybody here. But last year, I didn't know people and lots of people on bikes. And I helped organize a kids ride, the Kidical Mass ride through World Car Free Day. I didn't know any of the children showing up to that. I didn't know the parents. The people who came to help me run it, I didn't know them. So I love seeing strangers at these events because that means there are more people out there participating.
And you're probably talking to a lot of people. You're at Cafe Con Tampa. You were the featured guest. You know, it's cool to see a lot of different people there for you. Your fiction and nonfiction has this positive energy. And today you talked about how you would walk your kids to school and you saw these walkability issues. You approached elected officials and they didn't quite seem ready to do what they needed to do to create a safer place. So you sprung into action. Do you find that it's the same issues that, for lack of a better word, like radicalize people who become activists for this idea of just getting your feet on the ground to get around?
I think most people get passionate about a topic when it has affected them personally. A lot of the people that I meet in the transportation advocacy world have been affected by a tragedy. I am lucky. The reason I got involved was for positive things. Walking my children to school, I wanted a safer route to do this. I worked for it. I found opportunities to do that. And in doing so, found an entire subculture, should we say, of people in Tampa who are also interested in walking and biking and have been able to grow through that and meet new people and recruit new people and get more people involved.
Does it cost any money to be in Walk Bike Tampa?
It does not cost any money to be part of Walk Bike Tampa. It absolutely doesn't cost any money to come to World Car Free Day. If you want to be a sponsor of Walk Bike Tampa, everybody would be happy to have that support. Right. But no, you don't. You are in it if you want to be a walker and a biker and be excited about that in Tampa.
How big is that organization right now, do you think?
We have an all-volunteer board, and we have, I believe, 8 board members currently, all of whom are involved in Walk Bike Tampa, but also in other transportation aspects of the community. In terms of our quote-unquote membership, when we have events from World Car Free Day to our Bike Month celebration to our annual awards ceremony, we probably get 100 or so people that will reliably show up that would consider themselves Walk Bike Tampa members.
Awesome. You mentioned kids. Kids are a huge part of World Car Free Day, too. And there's a bike rodeo, the Kiddical Mass Ride we were talking about before the show started. And obviously, we're in our 3rd year, but what do you see when you witness these kids engaging with surface streets in a way that doesn't involve them riding in their car seat or car? And are you hopeful that they can actually have a more car-free lifestyle than we do now in the city? You know, they say with like baseball teams, you know, you got to get the kids in there, get them the caps, and that's how they become fans. Are kids becoming endeared to the idea of not having a car?
I think kids are an easy sell on this. This is how you meet people. This is how you build connections and relationships in your community. When you are in the back of your parents' car, your relationship is probably going to be with the iPad they gave you to be quiet. If you are out on the road, you meet other kids. You meet kids maybe who aren't your age. You interact with other adults who are supporting what you are doing and watching out for you. I think it's a really great way to connect your children to the community that they live in. And it goes beyond better safety infrastructure in the road. It's a safer community when we have more eyes watching out for each other.
And I keep going back to this morning because it was such a productive talk. I felt like the questions were so good. This morning you talked about influencing change and how that kind of starts with people instead of asking electeds to lead, right? You talked about people filling buses so that we demand more buses. You talked about people packing sidewalks so we can get wider sidewalks. Can you talk about neighborhoods where residents have been able to bring those changes to walkability? Is there a formula for that success that can be duplicated, or is it really kind of different within the Tampa neighborhoods?
It's a little different depending on different communities. I would specifically talk about my work with Sidewalk Stompers. We're a walk-to-school programming nonprofit. When we bring one of our walk-to-school programs to a school, we track the number of students participating in that program. And then as we have seen the number of students participating, that's information that we can share with the city or the county and say, listen, yeah, we know 2 years ago there were no children crossing at this corner. We now have like 30 of them. We need a crosswalk here. When they establish where crossing guards go through the sheriff's department, those are the numbers they have to have. They have to count how many children are there. So those are actual examples of where feet on the ground have added crosswalks, crossing guards, stop signs to our community.
And thinking about those resources, this morning you expressed concern about the politicization of street murals where there aren't resources already for proper crosswalks, right? So we get these murals down. How much has Walk Bike Tampa been able to dig into identifying how many of these types of crosswalks might be in danger of being erased or modified, and how many are actually perfectly legal and shouldn't be removed?
Well, I will say, to my knowledge, all but one of the murals or crosswalk murals that has been put in place in Hillsborough County was done through legal permitting. They weren't.
And I'll say the one that I think was
Yes.
not. It's in downtown Tampa, people.
Yeah. The rest all went through a permitting process. They drew up a mode of transportation around putting that mural in. They were paid for primarily by fundraising from the community. I believe, I'm not quite sure how many there are.
Okay.
Probably around 20 different sites where it's either a crosswalk mural or an intersection mural, or my favorite kind, the murals that go along the side of the road that help redefine existing infrastructure.
And a quick question. What neighborhoods, in your opinion, are best for not being in your car in Tampa?
I think downtown Channelside area is really in a good position for that. I actually love Seminole Heights as an area where there's a lot of businesses that you can walk to, and with the Heart One, the Route 1 bus, you can now get to a lot of different areas without a car. So those would be probably the places that I point to as the easiest to not just be in the neighborhood, but also then connect to the cool things in Tampa.
Are you willing to say what's the worst, or maybe not worst, but the one that needs the most improvement and maybe could see improvement the quickest? Or you want to skip that one?
Ooh, that's a big question. Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that one.
Okay. Maybe we'll come back to that. By the way, the voice you're hearing is Emily Hinsdale, an author and writer and president of Sidewalk Stompers, and also a board member of Walk Bike Tampa, which is organizing World Car Free Day in September. We're talking all things transit today on the radio. So you can send us a text, 813-433-0885. You can give us a call. 813-239-9663. Would love to have you be part of this conversation. You mentioned Route 1. One of the easiest ways to get around town without a car is just hopping on the bus. And Dana Lazarus with Transit Now Tampa Bay Group has had a busy and arguably successful year to close out 2024. This grassroots organization, whose mission, by the way, is to improve and increase public transit infrastructure, mode options, and programs. This group supported allocating taxpayer money to make Heart's Route 1 free. At the end of the day, as we reported in Creative Loafing, $1.65 million was diverted essentially from electric chargers to pay for Route 1 to be free. Route 1, there's a meetup as part of World Car Free Day. And it looks like the pilot for Route 1 is going well. It seems in June there were almost 133,000 trips on the route, which is a 60% increase from June of the year before. And the on-time performance for the route is also up almost 8% compared to June last year. The route will remain free through 2024. My favorite thing about getting on the bus earlier in the year when it was free, people looked so confused because they kept trying to pay. And they're like, no, it's free. It's free. But, when you take a look at the line items in the mayor's proposed fiscal year 2026 budget, Heartline only appears twice under the streetcar thing. And there was a presentation from Dennis Rajero, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry, Dennis, who's a CFO for the city. And there was an increased expenditure slide that proposed an extra $400K. But apparently that includes some carryover from this year, according to the Tampa Monitor. Dana Lazarus, you are with us. I'm wondering if you could tell us what your group sees in the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget about Route 1 and maybe about your group's overall hopes for the budget and transit. Thanks for being here, by the way.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So we essentially are going to be asking for about $3 million to be put towards Heart services. That is double the funds that we got for Route 1, which is $1.65 million. We think this is possible, and we know that public transit is arguably the most important, one of the most important, if not the most important, is what we think public services provided within the city of Tampa. And so it should be a funding priority of our city. So, this is the biggest budget. Every year the budget increases. We're getting a lot of money through parking fees. And that is what paid for Route 1 is actually through our parking fees. All of those new meters that have gone up, when you're paying your parking fees, your parking tickets, just know that some of that can go to public transit, and that always makes me feel better about paying it. But we're looking for about $3 million this year, and that'll go towards probably preserving Route 1 service, maybe expanding it, improving it, continuing to build on the momentum of Route 1's success, because as you mentioned, Route 1 has seen over a 50% increase in ridership, which is just phenomenal. And then as well as we're also investigating possibly funding an east-west route. We're looking at routes to the airport, routes that fund underserved communities in Tampa, and what the needs are. Is it frequency? Is it free fare? Is it better weekend hours, later hours during the weekday? And so we're having conversations with HART and the city of Tampa and our membership and people that ride the bus to figure out what we're going to be asking for.
Yeah, 32 runs right by the station here, and that's one of those east-west ones. You mentioned kind of collecting information. What kinds of information is your group kind of gleaning from this Fund the Bus campaign survey that you have out? And any huge things that maybe you didn't realize that you're learning through the responses?
People really love Route 1. That's one of the questions we asked is, would you support making fare-free Route 1 a permanent program? And there's overwhelming support for that. So people are really enjoying Route 1. There's other routes that have really high ridership, but not great frequency. We're looking at Route 12, Route 6, Route 5. We're just looking at what is going to be the most advantageous to the people and what can we actually get done. So there's a bunch of priorities that we're balancing. Nothing too surprising. Mm-hmm.
One of the big priorities that you had over the summer was this millage, right? And there's just opportunity for the public to once again tax itself to fund HART. Over the summer, the HART board voted to amend its charter, and it's clearing the way for residents to clear a tax that would boost resources for HART. And the next step, correct me if I'm wrong, is for the board to ratify a millage increase. That increase takes us from 50 cents up to $1. If that happens, voters could decide on this in November of next year. Do you have an update on where that initiative stands? I know May seems like it was just here, but it feels like a long ways away.
Yeah, we're still working on the next steps, but it will have to go before the jurisdictions that make up HART. So the city of Temple Terrace, the city of Tampa, and the Board of County Commission, they will have to approve that millage increase in the charter, and then it will have to be allowed to go on the ballot for the people to vote on next year. So there's definitely some steps that still have to be made, and we were looking at end of summer, early fall for those for the charter change to be on the agendas. So we're still kind of waiting on when those are going to be on the agendas, but thank you for bringing that up because we want people to know that this is coming and they should support it to their local elected officials.
Yeah, the testimony was really compelling in those hearings. You had a physician I remember saying that he had patients who would miss a bus, and that would be catastrophic for them. Then you're missing an appointment, and your whole life becomes derailed. And the reason we're talking about this millage is because the buses need maintenance. Everybody who's still listening at this point probably understands that Hillsborough has been chronically underfunded, especially per capita. I want to ask you, Dana, at the top of the show, we mentioned the special election happening for the District 5 seat here on Tampa City Council tonight. We're going to find out who's going to qualify for this next week here on the air. We'll have those candidates who qualified speaking for 2 hours to our listeners. But whoever wins that seat is not going to play a part in these budget decisions. But there are real tangible things that they can do. What are some of those real tangible things you are hoping the eventual winner of the District 5 seat can actually do for transit in Tampa Bay from that city council seat?
Yeah, so while they won't be voting on this year's budget, we will hope that they'll support that millage increase that we were just talking about. So we're really looking for a candidate that is a champion for public transit and really gets it and gets how important it is and is going to be willing to look themselves for new funding mechanisms and advocate for existing funding mechanisms to go towards transit. And so that does include the CRAs. The city council members are also the CRA boards. They just kicked off a multimodal impact fee update. So looking at our impact fees and making sure that those are correctly, appropriately sized, so to speak, that we're collecting the right amount of money and then where that money goes can be towards public transit. So we're looking for, there's all kinds of things that we need to fund to make our public transit system better, from making sure that the Tico streetcar remains free, to putting ever more money every year in our budget into bus route improvement and also bus stop improvements as well. And then throughout the year, marketing of public transit and the fare-free Route 1, for example. The city could have put funds into marketing fare-free Route 1. There was a little bit of that happened, but making sure that, those kinds of things are brought to the table and directed, towards staff.
And Dana, I hate to put you on the spot, but have you ever thought about running for office yourself?
I think that it's really important that we have people on the outside that are advocating on a day-to-day basis, and holding the elected officials to task for the things that the people need, and acting as a bridge between the community and the elected. So that is just to say, no.
Okay.
Thanks. But
is there anybody in the field? It's a really crowded field. If you haven't been paying attention to the District 5 race, I think we're probably going to see maybe close to a dozen people qualify for this thing. Has anybody really jumped out at you as a big champion for transit with actual good ideas instead of just kind of lip service about it?
So I have a list of maybe a dozen questions that I want to send to all of the candidates to see what they would say. They're really high impact questions. Haven't done that yet. Haven't been able to get those questions out yet. But so that being said, I don't actually know exactly where all of the candidates stand on transit. I want to know which candidates have actually ridden the bus. Have any of them had to rely on the bus to get around our city? So those are the kinds of questions I'd want to ask. I will say that Fran Tate has participated in a lot of our Route 1 activities. And, I think she stated at a recent forum that one of her campaign priorities is to make routes 5 and 32 fare free. I think she's a champion for transit, but I think there's some others that are as well, that, would be interested. I've talked to Naya Young and Tom DeGeorge, but haven't really gotten into it too deeply with all of them, so I can't really say.
Dana Lazarus, that's the voice you're hearing. She's the founder of Transit Now Tampa Bay here via Zoom. Dana, I know you got to go at 11:45, but please feel free to stay here with us and chime in on anything as we kind of keep moving through here. We're talking all things transit here on WMNF Tampa. You can send a text to 813-433-0885. The phone number is 813-239-9663, and emails go to dj@wmnf.org. We're talking about all these things and these ideas and these events events and plans. And that brings us to Johnny Wong here. 2 years ago, Johnny, you were named Executive Director of Hillsborough County's Transportation Planning Organization. You are already an executive planner there. Does that feel like yesterday or a lifetime ago for you, 2023?
Different days. I have different opinions on it. I would say that almost 90% of the time, I'm really enjoying the work and the job because, I view it as my mission to help improve Hillsborough County, and we've got to work through some of the bad days and the good days as well. The past 2 years have kind of flown by. I'm still working on making my impression on the team. A lot of the issues that I'm facing were inherited by me. And not to say that they're all bad. My team is in a great spot. I've got a great team of planners, award-winning planners. As a matter of fact, we've had a lot of successes. But, that's not to say that there aren't a number of challenges that we're looking to face in the future.
And it's tough to elevate to that post. There's a vote audit and things like that. And you were doing a lot of really good work kind of behind the scenes. What was like the impetus for you to want to step out in front and lead, Beth, your predecessor, Beth Alden, who was a huge transit advocate, it was tough, like during her time. You're watching that. Why would you sign up for that?
I like the role of what the MPO does, what Hillsborough TPO does. I find a lot of joy in it. I love working with the local governments and helping them solve problems. Some are wicked problems that may not have solutions, but I really enjoy the work. A little more than, let's say, 6 months before Beth announced her retirement, she came to me, took me out to lunch, basically told me what her plans were and asked if I would be interested. I took a little bit of time to think on it and got back to her and said, I would love to inherit the reins, kind of like take control of the agency. And I knew that I had her full support. By then, I had really good relationships with most of our board members, having served in the agency for quite a while before Beth retired. And I think that the board was really looking for somebody who understood the Hillsborough-specific issues that we were facing at the time, the challenges that would be coming up in the near and longer-term future. And they wanted to have confidence in somebody who kind of knew the ins and outs of the system.
And just to be clear, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Johnny, the TPO is a government-mandated board. It's tasked with engaging the public as it makes decisions on federal and state dollars being spent on transportation projects existing and in the future, programs as well. There are a lot of parts to the TPO, but two of the big ones are the Long Range Transportation Plan, LRTP, or the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program. Is there anything factually
that's pretty much it.
there? Okay.
No, everything's factually correct. We're federally funded. We do help the community decide what our top priorities should be, how we allocate the federal, state funding that's coming to the area. And we also get an annual budget of about $20 to $25 million that we can help distribute to local governments to help them meet their most pressing needs. So the TIP that you mentioned and our list of priority projects, we work directly with Hillsborough County, Tampa, Plant City, Temple Terrace, Hart, all the major players in this space, and try to figure out what they need to operate at their best. What do they need to help serve Hillsborough County residents in the best way possible?
And I'm just going to ask you this question, right off the bat, because I think it's on a lot of people's minds. Brightline, people thinking about it, we're talking about it. I think we could do an entire episode devoted to high-speed rail and Brightline even. But the TPO launched a survey about how folks would use that high-speed train, and I think that survey closed at the end of May. How much have you been able to dig into the results of that survey? And is there anything you can share as far as what you've learned from the responses?
Yeah, of course. And if you happen to, organize a longer session for us to talk about Brightline, I'd be more than happy because I'm really hot on Brightline at the moment. I think that there's support at the state and local level. And from the survey results that we were able to receive, it's clear that the public are really hot on understanding what Brightline operations would look like whenever that project gets underway. The survey results were good. We actually got a lot of results, very impressive by almost any metric, but especially for government.
Yeah.
I
know it was one of the posts on our social media. It was crazy.
It was thousands, yeah. Local governments, if they launch a survey, even if they put big money behind it, they might be content with getting hundreds of responses. We got thousands from all across the state, mostly Tampa, some from Orlando, but also around all of West Central Florida. The results kind of help us set the stage for the planning work that follows, right? If Brightline service from Orlando to Tampa happens, we need to know approximately where that station would be located. We have a good idea. I can't disclose publicly just yet, but I was told that Brightline's going to announce that within about a year, so stay tuned. And then for us, it's kind of figuring out how are people in Tampa going to get to the station? How are people from Orlando going to get to their destination once they get out of the station? And that information feeds the local government investments that need to happen. So, depending on where that station's located, how do we make sure that Uber and Lyft traffic isn't clogging up the roads? How do we make sure that folks have access to streetcar, bus? Do we need parking garages? Those kinds of things are really important. And the survey results were intended to inform the amount of money that we would need to make this successful.
So it sounds like Brightline is more real than it's ever been. I feel like a lot of times when we talk about high-speed rail or these kind of big idea things, we talk about them and then they go away or they get Rick Scotted up, but it sounds like this seems very real. I mean, you're saying that, there's going to be an announcement in a year. Do you feel that way, being involved with transit for so long and seeing this?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic about the prospects of Brightline becoming a reality. We've suffered a number of setbacks over the years. And the interest in Brightline has kind of fluctuated over the past 6 or 7 years, I would say. There was kind of like a peak period where everyone thought Brightline's imminent. It's happening within a very short period of time. And then what do we come to find out? Brightline's focusing its attention on the Western United States. Seems like they're back. They're building a presence on the ground. They're starting to get involved by having conversations with local electeds, government partners. They're starting to participate in the systems that we have in place. So it's clear they're trying to magnify their footprint. And I think that this is truly building up to developing an operations plan.
You kind of alluded to this history of transportation and big ideas. And although we're 4 or 5 years removed from it, I think a lot of folks locally and certainly everybody that's in this room and on Zoom can still feel the sting from All for Transportation when Hillsborough residents, again, voted to tax themselves to improve public transportation, only to see hundreds of millions of tax dollars collected broken up after a lawsuit from Hillsborough County Commissioner Stacy White successfully, he sued over ballot language. You're not in a position to live in the past, Johnny, but it's always been clear that folks are not happy or have not been happy with the transportation options. But how do you tell people, you guys are so engaged with the community, how do you tell people, both planner type people, nerds, and common folks, when they come to you with this almost like nihilistic or wounded view of the future of transportation in our region?
I would certainly understand that they view transportation in a negative light, given all of the suffering, all the setbacks that we've had, even recent past, the examples that you pointed out. But historically, we had really strong transit connections, and those have kind of been peeled back over the years. I'm optimistic because I have no choice but to be. I think that at some point there will be a tipping point at which it becomes almost untenable to drive. Using transit, walking and biking might be the preferred option, even recognizing some of the inconveniences that come with that. In Tampa specifically, walking and biking, it's hot outside, it rains, but we just learned about a week ago that we're now the 13th most congested metro in the U.S., and I think it's only a matter of time, if things don't change, that we kind of earn higher position on that list, which no one wants. But the costs that you pay, the issues that you face walking, biking, using transit may become minimal compared to sitting in traffic for hours a day.
How much can you talk about your relationship with your colleagues at FDOT, or the people like you at FDOT who are in charge of roads and things like that? Because, when you talk with transit activists, we're always wondering, why are we widening the interstate? Why aren't we creating a bike lane? Some people gripe when they take a lane and you turn it into a bike lane, but a lot of times you're training people. How involved do you have to be with FDOT, or are you more on the community side and planning and stuff like that?
For me, it's both. I have great working relationships with everyone at FDOT, even the folks that are responsible for studying needed roadways, designing them, constructing. We still have to maintain a good relationship because that's just part of professional courtesy, right? And I will say that in my kind of like offline conversations with them, they're very sympathetic to the needs of transit, walking, biking, all modes. While their priority may be to work on building roads, widening them, elevating, extending, or whatever, they understand that there's no silver bullet to the congestion issues that we have in Tampa. One solution isn't, or one project isn't going to resolve all of our problems. But in government, we have to play by the rules, right? If there's money that can only be used for roads, well, we can't violate that because we wouldn't be doing our job and being good stewards of public dollars. But again, I'll just reiterate this and give a shout out to the folks at FDOT. They're very sympathetic. They understand that we need a lot of different options if we're going to solve the transportation crisis in Hillsborough County. But
yeah, it's been really interesting to engage with some FDOT. Dana's really opened that door for me and allowed me to kind of meet some of these people and kind of see the approach to problem solving. You mentioned your board earlier, and again, you talk about working with people. The TPO board is really diverse as far as members' view on the role of transportation and transit. And as the executive director, what's it like for you? How are you engaging with folks and balancing their values and their constituents' values with what the long-range plan is and the TIP as well?
I view my job managing expectations of the public, board members being an extension of what Hillsborough County residents want. My primary job is to find areas of agreement. And so I think while the messaging, the temperature on different projects might be varied, depending on where they live, what they're hearing from their constituents. I think that there's always opportunities for some sort of balancing to occur. You look at road widenings and one board member might say, we need these because Hillsborough County is a car-centric community. That's true, but adding lanes on a road also presents an opportunity to run transit on it. Getting a new lane might present an opportunity for a trail. There's always some give and take, and sometimes it comes down to almost a negotiation.
There's probably a lot of people sitting around in their car right now listening to this, and we hear you talking about be involved. Emily's here, truly neighborhood advocate. Can you talk about how easy it is to get involved with the TPO and kind of have your voice heard? Like, if you're sitting in traffic right now and you're like, I don't like this, what can I actually do about it? And the commitment levels to this. Because some people will hear this conversation and it'll be so kind of heady and we're talking about all these things, but it really is about neighborhood people. Can you talk about the people that you see at these meetings and what they bring to that and what you need from the community so that you can, do their will?
I'm so happy you brought this up. This wasn't staged at all. We actually have a number of vacancies for at-large members on our Citizens Advisory Committee at this very moment. The TPO board is 16 elected officials and representatives of operating agencies, THEA, HART, Planning Commission, and so on. But we also maintain a number of advisory committees which are open to citizens if they want to apply. So you can go to our website, planhillsborough.org. In the search bar, type in advisory committee, TPO, some combination of those terms, and fill out an application. We've got one that is specifically citizens. So the Citizens Advisory Committee meets once a month for 2 hours on the first Wednesday. We've got Livable Roadways Committee, which focuses mostly on safety issues and trying to make corridors more livable and beautiful.
That's the most fun one.
Are you on that
Emily's
one?
on it. She's been on it for years. Bicycle Pedestrian
I'm on the
Advisory
CAC.
Committee.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. See, I'm in good company. Ray, you could join.
Am I allowed to join as a so-called journalist?
I don't think that that's a conflict.
Okay, cool. I am into it. By the way, we want to mention Transit Now is hosting bike rides on Route 1 for World Car Free, or bus rides, and so you can ride on there. Councilwoman Lynn Hurtak, who's been a guest on this show, will be riding to downtown on September 20th. Johnny, before we kind of transition here, I want to ask you, skipping over the long-term vision, what kinds of works will folks kind of see on the street that TPO is engaged in over the next year?
Some of the studies that we've got going, many of them are very technical, and those are in support of the local governments to build projects that can really assist with what their community needs. Brightline study you already discussed. We're going to be doing a phase 2 of that next year, figuring out exactly what needs there are to connect people from the station to their final destination and vice versa. We've got a study that's focusing on resilience of traffic signals and other technology out on the roads. And we decided to take that on because with hurricanes Helene and Milton that we experienced last year, we noticed that there's a strong need to make sure that the signals don't go black. And if they go offline, that they don't stay offline for too long. That creates a safety and congestion issue. So we've got that. We'll be concluding that traffic signal study in December. We've got a number of walking and biking plans that we're working on with Temple Terrace in Plant City right now. If you have me back sometime before the next fiscal year, I can give you a preview of what we've got going on in 26 and 27.
Oh, we love this. Anytime I get the show to myself, I just try to have a transit show and just talk about nothing but this. Johnny Wong, thank you so much for being here with us in the studio. Executive Director at the Hillsborough County Transportation Planning Organization, the TPO. Emily Hinsdale, thank you so much for extending your public speaking morning. A writer and author, president of Sidewalk Stompers, board member of Walk Bike Tampa, which is helping organize World Car Free Day in September, and Dana Lazarus, founder of Transit Now Tampa Bay, here via Zoom. All of you more than welcome to stay and talk to our next guest. We're going to transition here to politics a little bit. Kel Cameron, I don't know if you're here. Are you here with us right now, Kel?
I am here with you. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. And that's another guy that I saw. I sat down at a table and Kel was there this morning at Cafe Contampa. And he's here because he's entered the race to unseat Florida House Rep Karen Gonzalez Pittman. You are holding a campaign launch at 1920 Ybor on September 24th. Thank you so much for being here, Kel, and making time.
Of course. Happy to be here.
We should note that Karen Gonzalez Pittman, who is the incumbent in District 65, was unavailable today. We've been in touch with her legislative aide, Will Kirkpatrick, and she is invited to join us as we approach this race. Kel, we have about 10, 11 minutes to talk about your race here. Pragmatism seems to be a theme of your campaign so far. You're a college educator. You immigrated here when you were 18 years old. I know you're kind of not the typical politician, but I'm going to ask you to talk about yourself here. Can you talk about that background and how it plays into your platform?
Yeah, so obviously, as you just said, I am an immigrant. I moved here almost 20 years ago with 2 suitcases and $200 stuffed in a sock. I'm a member of the LGBTQ plus community, been married to my husband for 7 years, and I am an educator. And you would think with that kind of background, I'd have a very particular platform. But honestly, I'm jumping in because we need regular folks to represent us in Tallahassee. I deal with the crises of affordability and opportunity like the vast majority of people here in Tampa Bay. And I did not hear a lot of folks up in Tallahassee on either side of the aisle talk about that last session. That's why I decided to jump in. I threw myself in with both feet, and that's why I'm here. Though I do have a very, eclectic background with a lot of different adjectives that are all under attack right now. I really want to say I jumped in really because we need regular folk in Tallahassee.
Where did you immigrate from, and why in particular at that age? You know, sometimes we talk to candidates. They're like, "Oh, my family. You know, I was young when I came here." But you were 18 years old. You said it was 20 years ago. Where'd you come from, and what was it that drove you here?
This might sound trite, but to pursue the American dream. I grew up in a very poor former mining town in northern England, sort of a 2-stoplight town. I worked hard through high school, and then I got a full ride to MIT up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And 2 days after graduating high school, I was on a plane over here. And it was really because of the opportunity that is offered by America that I got to come out here. And 20 years later, I'm married to a Bostonian. I'm a proud American citizen. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity that MIT gave me to move out here 20 years ago. And that's part of the reason I stuck around in education. Was these are the people who changed my life, and I wanted to be able to do that for students, and I transitioned that into politics now.
When did you come down to Florida?
I moved down to Florida in 2018.
Okay. I want to ask you...
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. I've been down here for a little over 7 years.
Okay. Is it too hot for you? I feel like people come down from Boston and they're always like, no, this is the most terrible jungle in the world. But you seem to love it here. Every time I see you, you like super smiley and just happy.
I mean, how can you not be happy? We live in paradise. I know the summers are hot, but have you tried going through a Boston winter? I mean, you come down here, it's beautiful all year round. Yep, we have to hide inside from, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the summer, but we live in paradise. It's the green, blue, and white of Florida. We live in the best state in the union, and I do not regret one moment coming down here.
We have more questions for you, Kel, but we also have a caller here. We're going to bring Russ from Tampa on. Russ, you're on the air here with Kel Cameron.
Hi, thanks, Ray. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. I wanted to say I appreciate you letting me on the air, and the bind that you're in reminds me of Bill Owens over at 60 Minutes. My question is for Kel. It's regarding Angie Nixon, who's a Democratic state legislator. And she was put on the map late in 2023 when she proposed a resolution to say that the kids in Gaza should be fed. At the time, Israel had cut off water and food after October 7th, and it was starting to take its toll, and the evidence has become much more obvious now of what's happening over there. She only got one other person to support her out of 120 legislators, and that was who we all know and love, Anna Eskamani. I was wondering, if you were to be elected as a state legislator and this resolution came up again, would you vote for it?
Thanks, Russ.
Russ,
any response?
So that is a very interesting question. Most of us think about it. In Tallahassee, I don't really have a lot of direct impact on foreign policy. But what I can really say is that I have immense empathy for what is going on over in the Middle East on both sides of the aisle. As somebody who grew up in the United Kingdom in the 80s and 90s during the Troubles, I understand a lot of issues that come up from both sides. But what I can say is I'm running because I'm actually wanting to work for the people right here in Hillsborough County. And what I can say is that for the people in Hillsborough County, what I am absolutely disgusted by is the sheer volume of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism that I have been seeing going around. And that is what I will fight to prevent. When it comes to a resolution that would be in Tallahassee, I don't like to talk hypotheticals. I would need to see the resolution, which I will admit I have not read, therefore I do not want to comment on. But I'm more than happy, Russ, if you send it over to me, I'm more than happy to make a direct comment once I read it.
Okay. There's an article about it. I can send it to you.
Thanks,
That
Russ.
would be excellent, Russ. You have my email.
All right.
Thanks, Russ. And if you text, I can send you Kel's email as well and the campaign website, which will be linked on the blog.
Kel and I know each other, too.
Oh, all right.
Democrat.
All right. Thanks, Russ.
Thank you, Ray.
So, Russ, I want to ask you, I love interviewing folks running for stuff because they're so involved with their communities. I love having people like Emily and Johnny here because they just love being around and you talk to people. District 5, it stretches from West Chase down a little bit of town and country, and it traces our coast here, our illustrious coast in Hillsborough County, all the way Benty Davis. It goes around MacDill Air Force Base. Palmacia's in there, Rattlesnake Point, Davis Islands. It even touches West Tampa, and that's a really diverse constituency there. Should you make it here, Republican Gonzalez Pittman, Karen Gonzalez Pittman, she got over 57% of the vote to get this second term. And I know that getting out early is part of your strategy to win this seat. How is the early outreach going, and what have you learned about District 65 as the campaign is getting going?
So, as people are starting to get to know me, they'll know that I have a research background. I'm an educator. So I did not come into this race unprepared. I knew what I was getting in for, and I'm so proud to be part of this South Tampa, West Tampa community. And honestly, the support has been overwhelming, both in just community support and financial support. I'm really seeing a large welcome from the Democratic and Independent community, and especially in the areas of education, which obviously happens to be my background. And I'm seeing a lot of people really looking for this practical, pragmatic change. We want people who are going to not just talk about the standard Democrat bullet points, which we've heard, up and down for the past 2-3 cycles. They want people who are actually going to talk about the knock-on effects. It's more than just affordable housing. It's the ability to live your life. It's more than just access to education. It's the ability to grow that education into impacting Florida's economy. And I'm seeing that message in It is day 25 of my campaign, and I am already seeing that message resonate deeply with our community. And I'm feeling very flattered and grateful that it is.
Yeah, it is very early in your candidacy. I almost feel like it's unfair to drag you on here and have you do this. We're talking about transit today and thinking about Tallahassee and the way that it affects transit. What can you say about what you've seen come out of Tallahassee and what you would like to kind of address should you get to seat there?
I'm glad you brought this up. I'm a big fan of public transportation. I will admit that I take public transportation whenever possible. I am a walker. Like when you saw me at Cafe Con Tampa this morning, I walked the 2 miles from my apartment all the way to Cafe Con Tampa because that is just the type of person I am. What I see coming out of Tallahassee is absolutely no support for public transportation. And though I really appreciated what we talked about when it comes to walkability and rideability, but that involves a lot of privilege of time. If you want to walk somewhere, if you want to ride somewhere, you need to be able the time to do it. What we need to be investing in is actual public transportation for our workers. We see most of the people who work in downtown do not live in downtown. They need to be able to access our neighborhoods through cheap, affordable, and most importantly, reliable public transportation. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of that coming out of Tallahassee when the majority of people are so comfortable with driving. And public transportation, it isn't, and pardon my terminology, it isn't a sexy topic, but it is something that I'm very passionate about. And I'm so happy to see y'all talk so much about it. Because it's something we need to really bring to Florida. It's the only way we can grow our economy for everyone is to allow that opportunity of access through public transportation.
And how much can you talk about what it feels like to be a college educator at a public university in Florida right now? You're running for this seat and having that position, you really open yourself up to a lot of criticism and things like that. But can you talk about what it's like to be an educator in that space and in that situation?
I can tell you that I am so proud to be a public college educator in Florida, or a college educator in general. I'm married to a one too, and I see it from both sides, the private and the public side. We have amazing institutions of higher education here in Florida. And if we can figure out how to keep politics out of the classroom, it really can just expand further. The issues I see right now are that a lot of students don't necessarily feel safe coming to be educated in Florida. We have issues with our K-12 system that are not allowing us to funnel our best and brightest students who are already being born and raised in Florida into our into our higher education institution. So, I have a lot of worries for where we're going, but what I can really say is I'm so proud to be a part of that community.
And we got like 30 seconds here. You mentioned your husband, Jason. Does he think you're crazy?
Yes.
How worried is he about you winning? Why would you do this to him?
He is my absolute biggest champion. He's probably listening to this right now. And he is in the arts, and I know arts education and arts funding is very big to him. And I know that one of the things I'll be championing is funding for the arts, not just for my husband, but for the amazing Tampa arts community we have right here. And yes, he probably thinks I'm crazy, but it's been 10 years. He's used to it now.
That's awesome. Kel Cameron, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure we'll talk to you more as we get closer to the race.
Yeah, hope to have me back on. Thank you so much.
Of course. And thank you to our guests in the beginning of the show, Dana Lazarus, founder of Transit Now Tampa Bay, Johnny Wong, executive director of the Hillsborough County Transportation Planning Organization, and Emily Hinsdale, a writer and author, president of Sidewalk Stompers, a board member at Walk Bike Tampa, which is helping organize and organizes World Car Free Day here happening in September 20th. Get out of your car that day. Thank you so much for joining us here on WMNF Tampa. I see Joellen Schilke over there in Studio 1. The lights are looking perfect in there, and Art in Your Ear is getting queued up. So stay tuned for that. Please remember that next week we're going to be combining with John Dingfelder's show Down and Dirty. We're going to host a 2-hour Tampa City Council District 5 candidate forum right here on air. Thank you so much for tuning in, Mitch. I hope that you aren't even thinking about work right now or listening to this radio show. Thanks for the support, and we'll see you next week here on WMNF Tampa.